Hi, my name is Margaret Tambe. I'm happy you're here once more for another episode of our Mentor Maya 7 channel. So, today we are going to discuss the most asked questions that I've had people after finding out that I've lived in both North America and Europe. The next sure question is usually to know which of the continents is better. And when I'm asked a question like this, I usually ramble a little bit because it's too many factors to consider. You have the pros and the cons of each of these societies. So I thought it would be wonderful for me to make this video and use it as a referral for those who want to travel. They're still trying to make a decision for their destination, and also for those who are just curious, because a lot of those are just curious, they want to know. The very first item that I will consider to talk about, this is in no particular order, is going to be on the aspect of assimilation and language. We know as Africans that the majority of Africa is either speaking English or French. A few of them do speak Portuguese, but not a significant number. And usually when we find ourselves traveling to places where English is the first language or French, we easily do fit in. But when it's any other language, like for example Dutch and other type of dialects in Sweden and other countries, then we have to start from below zero, because we first need to learn the language. We're not just assimilating the culture and the way of life and adapting to the weather changes and stuff like that, but we also have to start from learning the language. This usually takes, depending on the time you dedicate and for what purpose, like up to what level you're supposed to learn the language for, it will take you something from a year to 2 years.
No way!
To be able to learn the language and be able to communicate at a starter level, be it at the job site, be it for transactions at the bank, in the market, and things like that. So this is one important thing to consider when you're traveling to North America. I'm thinking mostly the United States of America or Canada. Most of us are already English speakers, and most of us consider that as our first language, you know. So you have to consider that if you come into Europe, a lot of these countries do not have English or French as their first language. You know, French, maybe France and Swiss, and even a country like Sweden, where they do list on the internet that English is one of their official languages. Even if you get there, because I did a research, if I needed to go to nursing there, I've seen that even when you get there, you still need to learn their language, because the patients in the hospital, they're not obligated to understand English. You still need to be able to do your nursing education and things like that through their language, the language of which they understand best. So that is one thing to consider. It will take you some time, and if you're coming for schooling, then it's even more intense, because your language skills are supposed to be at a certain level for you to even understand what they're teaching you, because they don't teach in the most basic of terms and words. Okay, so we have to consider that that is a plus for the countries that speak English and French as first language. So the second thing that we would consider as opposed to traveling to North America or to Europe, is going to be on social aspects, recreation, and the possibilities of having adventures in life. Okay, now, not to say that in North America you don't have those possibilities. North America has everything. Like, oh my goodness, the availability, just look at the size of the United States of America. Okay, so everything is available, from the bad, the good, and the ugly. Everything is available, and at different price ranges. But the question is, because of how the system is set, because of how much time is to be invested at work and in running businesses, how many people really do enjoy those services? You know, the vacation time for the United States, as I might be mistaken, but as much as I lived there and I knew, was 13 days in a year, 13 working days in a year. Okay, and I'm considering that was for, because most of the jobs I did were 12-hour shifts. So maybe somebody doing 8 hours, 9 to 5, the regular 9 to 5 would have maybe a couple more days more than I did. Now, with 13 days in a year to rest in quote, are you of a truth resting, or are you taking a vacation? Meanwhile, here in Europe, these facilities are available, and as we'll go forward, we'll see about the setup of the system. These facilities are readily available. You don't even have to go far. Okay, they make sure recreation, where they live, in the places where they have like residential houses, it is interspersed, it is planted. Like, you have recreation centers, a lot of them. If you go to the right, the left, you go forward, you come backwards, you are sure to find a place for recreation. Whatever you consider recreation, is it boat riding, is it swimming, is it a court to play in, is it a playground, like a real good beautiful playground for children, is it a huge park to walk in, is it where they have gardens and flowers? That is the way they designed their community, to maximize, to make sure the people, their citizens, and the people who live here have the maximum possibility to be socially engaged and have recreation. And when it comes to adventure, look at the way Europe is built. Okay, the ICE trains, the slow trains, you have buses running at good rates from one country to another overnight. During the day, at all hours, there is a way to move. You go even to a strange city, like the network is, transportation network is out, is like nothing I've seen in the US. Okay, so these things are very heavily invested in Europe. So if you're somebody who is very adventurous, you are somebody full of energy, you have that kick, I would think that Europe would be a good place for you to satisfy that hunger, that thirst for adventure, and to have a socially balanced life. The third thing that we're going to talk about is going to be on health aspects. If we look at how, basically, if you just use the layman's eye and you look, you can already have your answers for this. Okay, consider stress, consider how many working hours somebody does in a day, consider how much sleep they are getting, consider how much of a distance they need to drive to and fro work, consider with that sitting in traffic, consider how much they're spending to fuel their big cars. or their small cars. Consider the obligation to have a car to be able to keep a job and to live normally, as opposed to how the European cities are built, and they have street trains, which they call here in Germany trams. Like, these trains run within the city at every hour, every direction. Consider the possibilities, pedestrians, walkways. Okay, I remember in the US, there are many times I felt like walking from here to there. I had a job in L'Oreal Hospital. It wasn't far. There were some days I had enough time to walk there, but guess what? There was no walk path. There are places you're walking and a car is coming, you have to get into the grass. Okay, there are no walk paths. You wouldn't find that in Europe. Even in places where there are no houses, they still have a place to walk. You will hardly find that in Europe, okay? And their distances, they make sure pedestrians are comfortable, and on top of that, they make sure that you can bike your way through. Like in this Hanover, you can go from one end of Hanover to the next on a bike. You can go from Hanover to neighboring towns on a bike, and you'll be safe. Okay, so this government, the European government, the system, because I've been to Italy too, I've seen that they have these facilities. The European government, I will generalize from these places I've been to, that, and what I've seen, of course, online of other like Norway, Netherlands, and things like that. They have the health of their people in mind. Now let's talk about food. Do you know that there are a lot of food items that are forbidden to be sold here in Europe, but they are sold in the US? They even have like the different types of grades. Okay, the food here is wholesome. You have farms, like where we're living right now. You see a lot of farms. You go to the farmers market and meet like really fresh produce, yeah, from the farms. Like, the food is different. It is true that at this point everything has gotten more expensive because of the inflation that has happened post-COVID. Post the germ. Okay, now when I first got here, every time I used to go to the cashier and round up to get how much I need to pay for my items, I would always spend a minute and look at them and be like, is he mistaken? It was something not scanned, because the prices were shocking if I was considering how much we pay for the same items in the United States of America. So really, if you come to consider, you even look at the stress levels, it's easy to just go out here now and you would see a lot of people in their retirements. They are sitting outside ice cream parlors, they are drinking coffee out, they are having well dressed, they are having the times of their lives, okay, with other elderly people. It's so common to see people sitting and having a good time outside. People are walking. Every time you go to the city centers, you think something is happening. This is the impression I've only had of Washington, D.C., where people, tourists come in. That's the only place I've seen that. But here in Europe, anywhere, every corner, even if it's not at the heart of the city, you will see a lot of people going on foot, and you think something is going on. No, it's just daily life. Okay, so that is for the health aspect and how the state has really put their foot into it to help the people. Now let's talk about another thing that the state has put in place to help the people. Of course, Germany and Europe is also a capitalist place, but they have things in place to foster a better social system, which are backed like by their laws. Okay, for example, I remember when I was in the US, I was pregnant. and I was switching. I went one job, I went as a PRN, and I was going the other one that was a PRN, I was going there as a part-time with insurance. So between that transition, between those two changes of my two jobs, I fell out of insurance. I was 3 months pregnant. I went to a social place. I begged them. I said, this is my first trimester. I need insurance. I have a period of about, it should be like 2 months, where I would not be able to have insurance. Can you cover me for these 2 months? I even brought the paperwork and showed them. And the answer was no. And I was so disappointed. I left that place. I was so disappointed. I was like, how many years of taxes? Sometimes I'll get a paycheck, and the taxes alone for that single paycheck will be like $1,700 and something dollars. Taxes for one paycheck of 2 weeks work. And I was so disgusted. I said, what is it? What is it? Must we be lazy to benefit from the state? Thank God it isn't so with the European system. Guess what? Since we've been here, my son is American. From the first time we entered here and we gave the date of our entry, they processed our papers. It took some months for them to process those papers. And then they paid. They have what they call here in Germany Kindergeld. It was first of all 204 euros a month. Now they have increased it to 250 to help with the inflation. They calculated all those months that had been missed, and they paid in arrears. They paid it. So I'm like, look at that. This is an American child in Germany, and he's having all these benefits. In the US, he did not have even a dime from the state. Okay, so they have these socialist laws to protect who they consider less privileged, although the Kindergeld is for everybody, because they do not want to even dream it or think about it, that there is a child who's going to go hungry, or don't have good clothes, appropriate clothes to wear to school, or would lack a toy and things like that. So that is the state's way of assisting, because they will not ask specific people not to put you on the line, or for you to think like, oh, they'll think I'm not a fit parent, and so they just give it to everybody. But then for those that are not able to meet up with the demands of life, they will provide apartments. I know they have that also in the US, but it is more stricter. The categories to qualify in the US is more dense and more dark and more sorrowful than it is to qualify for those benefits in Europe. Okay, and here, as we already might have heard rumored, is true, everybody has an insurance. You either get it from your job, your spouse's job, or if you don't have it and you're here legally, now we're talking about legal people, not that they don't even have you on your roster, but as long as you're legal, there is a system that will give you health insurance, period. Okay, now the next thing to compare between European situations and that of North America would be bureaucracy. Okay, how they run their official matters, and in that I will just throw in customer service. Here in Europe is not a good picture at all. At all. If you're coming, make sure you are patient. Don't think that you hit the ground running. You won't run, because every string that you're trying to pull would instead be pulling you back. They are slow in every way imaginable to process papers, to make appointments, to see doctors. Sometimes you'll be on the waiting list, and this is also, my brother in Britain is also experiencing that. Like, you make an appointment to see a doctor, and you have to wait for 3, 4 months, 6 months, sometimes more than sometimes a year, okay, to see a doctor. I've had a colleague who broke their hand on a scooter, and she had to wait at home for 2 weeks to have surgery done. During that time, they just pumped her with pain medicines, and then they used a tight band-aid, elastic band-aid to tie the hand in place. Can you imagine that? If you come here, even I had to sign a document at a lawyer's office, something that would have taken me a very low price. I don't want to state price because prices have always changed, but something that would have taken me a very low price and like 5 minutes in the US. In Germany, it took me 3 weeks, and the price was like 20 times more expensive. The bureaucracy would drive you crazy. Okay, so be prepared for that. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is about entrepreneurial spirit. For somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur, if you come to Europe now, the laws and the regulations and the stipulations are so steep. They are so steep. It takes so much more effort, time, and money to get going. Even here, like in Europe, there's a time I was thinking, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just make pies, fish pies, meat pies, and sell them like that. And somebody gave me a very serious warning and said, if your neighbors even know it, or if they even catch wind that you opened the trunk of your car and removed goods and went and delivered to somebody, they will call the police, and the police will be asking you for your operational papers, what business registration papers and things like that. You know, they are very strict here, but in the US, you can fly under the radar for a lot of things. Not to say that if you need to own a shop, you won't need those documents. But here in Europe, even those things, running a business from your home, it will get you into trouble sooner or later. It will get you into trouble. Yes, you must. Even to order things from China, or I even bought some stuff from the US. It came, the customs took it. It was things for me to use, pairs of shoes. I saw them and I liked them. A friend bought and shipped. The taxes I paid on those shoes were equal to the amount I used to buy the shoes, and I haven't tried that again. And it's the same buying from China. They would open your packages, they look into everything because of taxes. They need those taxes, you know. So be ready if you're coming to do business, that those are the challenges you face here as opposed to in North America, where you can start small from your house, from your garage, from your basement, and you kick off until you become official. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to discuss is going to be, that should be the 7th item, is going to be family structures. If you look at all the things I've already listed so far, you will see that the systems in Europe support a lot and holds together the family structure. Okay, families here, as opposed to what I've experienced in North America, they have a lot of time together. Guess what? Here in Europe, you are regulated how many hours you can work. You can only do one job. Okay, and it's registered in the system. Any other place in town you go to look for a job, they can tell that you have a job. Yes, of course, a few people do black job under the radar, but very few. And because the things here in Europe are affordable, they are not too big, but they are comfortable enough and affordable, like the housing, the cars, how much petrol you need to fuel your car, and just commute distances, all those things. Most people don't see the need of having a second job. Okay, now they also have what they call mini job, which is a small type of a few hours. I think depending on your hourly rate, then it adjusts to the number of hours you can do in a month. Now this mini job is without tax, but it doesn't exceed 500, I think 520 or 560 euros a month. It shouldn't exceed that. Okay, so they have a cap on how much time you can work. So guess who's benefiting from the rest of the time? Your family, your children, your friends. There's enough time to do. It is not like it is in the US, where the babysitters and the schools help to raise our children because we always at work. And the 1 or 2 days we're off, we are so tired, we don't even know where to lay our heads down. So if family is the most important thing to you, Europe is the place to go. Okay, so if you're going to the US, know that that is how the system is. Maybe you want to look for an outskirt place like North Carolina, where place maybe houses will be cheaper, lower pay, but since money is not your objective, family is most important, you wouldn't mind it. But apart from that, most places in the US are not that affordable, so you have to put in the work to be able to afford those things. Okay, so the last item which is important to consider when you're trying to make a decision where to move to, or you just want to know, is the income and job availability. I don't think there's a place. I've heard stories about Switzerland. I wouldn't doubt it because they're hiding a lot of African money there that the presidents come and live in the banks. And all the 419s all over the world also hide their money there. I wouldn't doubt it. But if we are just talking term to term, the US has so much variety and availability of work. Okay, so much, I don't even think I can compare it to Europe. And the pay is about 3 to 4 times higher. Maybe not of minimum wage, but if you have a little training and stuff like that, then the pay is so much higher in the US. Of course, when you are looking at an income, you always have to consider how much of it is net income, because when you have that income, the taxes are taken. Let me say this before I forget. Taxes in Europe are very high as compared to the taxes in the US. It's common to see people paying 30%, 35%, 40%, some people even 45% of taxes here in Germany. So, and I think in Britain the taxes are also very high as compared to the US. So when you're looking at somebody's income, you don't just have to look at the amount they are making in a month. You also have to look at how much of it stays as liquid cash in their pockets after they have spent for, we are saying averagely, for their average house, average other expenditures, and the cost of food. You have to factor all those things in to know if the total amount makes sense or not. So if you're the one that is looking for money and you say, okay, I want to sacrifice 5 years, I want to sacrifice 10 years of my life to make enough money, and then I set off and never look back, then USA is the place for you. The United States is the place for you. You make those sacrifices. If you are the one who says that, no, I cannot sacrifice time with my family and my friends, or I like to hang out, I like to play football, to be able to play football frequently, I like to, if you have all those desires, you want to adventure and travel the world on a cheaper rate and even by availability of time, then Europe is going to be your choice. As I said, every place has its strengths and its weaknesses, and basically that is it. So I would go back and add just this one little information. Europe is very big on training people for skills. Very big on training people for skills. Here in Germany, they call it Ausbildung. 3-year courses. 3-year courses where you come and you work in this field and the pay makes sense and it's respectable, like you have a craft and you just get better and better at it. Okay, it's not just about degrees, empty degrees. No, Europe is very big on that. And I think, as I've said it many times, Africa, that is the way Africa has to go. If we are going to make it, if we are going to get out of the unemployment chagrin that is going on in Africa, if we are going to get out of the unemployment desolate conditions of Africa, we have to get into the mindset of obtaining and perfecting skills that are marketable, skills that will transform our environment, will transform the way we build houses, the way we can connect water and make it available. For Africa does not have any reason to be lacking light. We have the sun like you will not find it anywhere else. Like we have water bodies, we shouldn't be lacking electricity and water. Okay, we should be able to make cars. We should be able to do all those things. So obtaining skills is the way for us to go. And I see that it has been for a long time here in Europe. And they are not backing down. They are not backing down. Even people who are 50 years old, they still go and do house building to obtain skills. Okay? All right. Thank you for watching. Please let me know if there's anything I missed that is amazing between the differences between US and America. Please let me know if there is any factors that you learned and that is going to influence your decisions. And I will see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day. Ciao.